आप सुन रहे हैं रेडियो मनपसंद FM 91.1 पर और हमारे साथ आज जुड़े हैं। जैसे कि आज के कार्यक्रम में हम टैलेंटेड इंडियंस की बात कर रहे हैं, तो एक टैलेंटेड इंडियन फिल्म प्रोड्यूसर जो ऑस्ट्रेलियन इंडियन हम ये कहेंगे, वो हमारे साथ जुड़ी हैं। उनका नाम है प्रज्ञा दुगल। वेलकम प्रज्ञा
Hi
to our
Kishor,
program.
thank you.
Masa
Thank you.
has, thank you. Masa has been entered in the short film category of Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts Awards. Maybe we can call it Oscars of Australia. It wouldn't be wrong to say that. And this is the first time when an Indian language film is being considered in these awards. So it's still a long way to go, but it's a very remarkable step. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we talk about Masa, we would like to know about yourself, your journey to the producing movies.
Yes, so actually by profession, I'm a doctor. So I'm a specialist, I'm a radiologist. I was born and grown up in Australia. So I was born and raised here in the 1970s and 80s. Grew up in a small beach town in Australia. So I had a very Australian sort of upbringing, but a very Indian upbringing at home. So I came to Sydney sort of for about end of high school and early university, and went to medical school here. And I had always had a fascination with my Indian background and my Indian culture. And so as soon as I came to Sydney, I was fascinated with Indian films. I used to watch all the videotape movie and dances, and I wanted to learn Indian dancing. So as soon as we our Indian culture and the beauty of it and the depth of it, and it's such an ancient tradition and ancient culture, and so yeah, then I was a that was my passion. So yes, by profession I was a doctor, but everyone said by passion I was a dancer as well. And so I went on. I did Bharatanatyam. I did my Arangetram when I was a medical student, and continued to do traditional Indian dancing, and then I ended up also going into some Bollywood style dancing as well. And did some Bollywood, like I ran a Bollywood dance company here for a little while called Monsoon Dance, and we used to choreograph and do performances and teach classes and that sort of thing. And then film was always a natural love as well. I think I'm just, medicine is my profession and a big part of my life, but I have a very strong creative side and a love of the performing arts as well. And so then an opportunity arose to produce a film, a Bollywood style film. At the time when in 2015 I was lucky enough to win an award at the IABCA Awards, which is the Indian Australian Business and Community Awards for Professional of the Year. And when I got up on the stage in my acceptance speech, I paid tribute to my father and my father's generation of immigrants from India who came here with nothing and established a life here for us, so that their children, my generation, and all the future generations could have a better life. And my dad's story was quite an extraordinary story. He was a young doctor who came here, and he went out it became a rural GP. He became his own flying doctor service. He got his pilot's license. He had a very extraordinary story. And I told that story as part of the speech. Someone had said to me, "Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. You should make a film about your dad." And so that's kind of where the idea sort of started from. And got talking and ended up doing a little Bollywood style film. And that was my first foray into film. And then that just opened other doors, and these opportunities came for me to then become part of some feature films in the USA, in Hollywood as well. And so I ended up being an executive producer on two feature films that were called The Sound of Silence and Farewell Amour, and they went on in 2020 to premiere at the Sundance Film Festival, which is a very world-renowned film festival. I had established my little production company. I've called it Jhumka Films production company. Jhumka being obviously very special to me, being the traditional Indian earrings, and it being a dance I love Jhumkas. It's like a symbol of our culture as well. So I thought it was very apt to name the production company Jhumka Films. So under this banner of Jhumka Films, yes, I started off with this little Bollywood style film, and then ended up using that production company name to do these Hollywood independent films that went on as well. And those were English language films. They were both filmed in New York. And then this opportunity came up to do this film Masa, short film Masa. And this film is a very special little film, actually, like very special, of particular significance to me for a number of reasons. First is that the directorial debut of Fulwa Kamkar. So she is as good as, she's very close family to our family, almost like family, like a relative of my own. She's an excellent choreographer. She's actually a well-renowned, highly regarded choreographer in the Marathi film industry and in Bollywood as well. She's based in Mumbai. She's done a lot of, she's done many films. She, for example, Apsara Ali is one of her quite well-renowned songs that she's choreographed, which many people heard of. So this is her directorial debut. She really wants to break into directing film. And so this beautiful little story of Masa was written for her by Sandesh Kulkarni, who is also a writer and actor. And then she sent me the script and she asked me, would I support her and by producing this film for her? And I just read the script. It's a beautiful little story. It really spoke to me. And so 100%. And then we also, she told me that we're going to film it in Nagaon, in Alibag.
Nagaon. Yeah.
So this is that then cemented it for me, because that's where my grandfather was born and where my great-grandparents lived, and like where my ancestral roots lie in the Konkan area south of Mumbai. So then 100% I was there. So we actually filmed a Masa there, and it's just a very, very special little film. So I've actually dedicated the film to my grandfather, and told a little bit of the story as well. He has also a very interesting, amazing story that I've kind of put in the dedication on our website, and just let people know. It's a nice way to pay tribute to your roots and your ancestors.
That's a wonderful story, Pradnya. And while you mentioned about Alibag, Nagaon is next to Alibag, and I spent a few years over there. It's one of the most beautiful part of the world, we can say that. And we have got wonderful memories of living there. And I can't wait to see that movie and go back to those days of Alibag and relive it.
Gorgeous, and lots of beautiful beaches, and
Yes, and it is unspoiled. I mean, we all talk about Goa, but that's okay. That's fully commercial, but we forget about the Alibag, Ratnagiri, and Konkan area, which is equally beautiful. So just about that movie, you mentioned that you got a background in Konkan. What is the brief synopsis of that movie? Just give us an idea, not the full story.
No, of course. It's a film about a family. It's about an elderly widow, Rakma Bai, and she's a tough old woman, and she loses her son in a car accident. And so to make ends meet, she, with her daughter-in-law, Ketiki, who's now also herself a young widow, they have to make ends meet. So they start making the tiffins and, the lunch boxes, and selling it to the local villagers, making beautiful fish curries and like all the local delicacies, and packing the tiffins and selling them to the villagers. And that's how they make a living. And they said, life goes on, and they kind of they're ensconced in the monotony of their life. But their grief hovers around them. Like 4 years have passed since the death, but still it hovers around them like a ghost. And so in amongst all of this, she has to look after her young son as well, little boy, and Aniket as well, who's now grown up without a father. And so that's setting the scene of what it is. It sort of shows how difficult it is for this young widow in this scenario as well. And then one day there's this new customer walks in, and he takes a bit of a liking to Ketiki, the son. And that's and then it shows like how the dynamics of that relationship happen. And, that's a difficult, challenging situation for all members of the family. So that's the synopsis.
That's a beautiful movie, it sounds. And I think you were here in Australia, and the movie was being made in India. What were the logistics involved? How did you manage that?
Yeah, a bit tricky. I would have loved to be able to physically be there, but it was all like during the next wave of COVID had hit and the lockdowns were happening, and it was all a bit difficult to get over there.
Yes,
so
yeah.
logistically, I mean, I was still able to, as a producer from this end, but then on the ground, they had an excellent casting crew on the ground there, and Fulwa, had other people also helping in terms of production and the logistics on that side. But so yeah, it was difficult, and also being able to get all the casting crew out of Mumbai together at the same time, and then get down to this small village, and especially during a COVID pandemic, that's made it difficult across the entire film industry regardless. But finally we managed to find, a small window of period of time where that was able to be happening. It got delayed a couple of times over a few months, but finally we got there.
All right, okay. And you have been involved in producing a full-length feature film, and then there's a short film. Of course, in feature film, you have got a larger canvas and you can express in a lot of ways, but then in short film, you have a very short amount of time where you have to tell the story. How do you manage the challenge of making a short movie, still having the full story and everything there?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge. And I think it's a testimony to the talent of the director and the cast and the crew to have done this so beautifully. This film is 25 minutes, so it's probably on the longer side of short films. And a lot of short films tend to be more around the 10 to 15 minutes mark. But this is, so this is about 25 minutes. So it's a really nice amount of time to develop the story and develop your your understanding of these characters and your empathy for these characters. And I think it's actually just the right amount of time. Once you watch it, you'll realize like it builds up. It builds up that emotion really nicely in that time. But I think it definitely takes a lot of talent to be able to speak to your audience in such a short period of time. Definitely.
Yeah. So what are the next steps now the Masa is part of this, it has been entered into the awards? How long it would take before we know that the movie has been chosen for an award or not?
So at the moment, it's one of the contenders. So there's a range of short films that have all been nominated as contenders. So there's a voting period, and the voting is only for the Academy members of AACTA. So they are able to watch the film on their Academy platform, and then they're able to vote for the film. There's only a 2-week period, and that ends this Monday. So the voting closes this Monday. So then after that, then they'll open a few other categories up. Like next they'll do the voting for the documentaries, and then probably after that they'll go into the feature films, etc. So I'm not exactly sure when we'll find out if we get to the next stage of being a finalist nominee. But once we find out, then the actual award ceremony happens in January.
Oh, right,
yeah,
okay.
and that's
so
a big.
That's the time when we would know in January.
Yes.
And meanwhile, the movie has been chosen for Indian Film Festival in Melbourne, which is going to happen in August. And you also have a scoop from LA or Hollywood. So can you share that too also with us?
Yes, so very excited. This morning just found out. So Masa's also going to Hollywood. So we've just
wonderful.
So Masa has been selected for the Hollywood International Diversity Film Festival, and that's also happening in 2 weeks' time. So exactly around the same time as the Indian Film Festival of Melbourne, and it's going to be screening in a theater in Hollywood in Los Angeles.
All right. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned about the screening. How can we see the movie on the screen?
So that's why I'm working so hard to do all these things to get the film out there. So as a producer, it's wonderful to be able to create a film. It's a real privilege to immortalize a story on the screen. But then that's only part of the process. Is now the next process is to get the next step is to be able to get the world to be able to see it. And when you've got such a beautiful film like Masa, it's it takes a lot of energy and time and effort. But you really want, as a producer, you want to be able to to show the world this film. So as a short film, I think our steps first are to get it to as many film festivals as we can, and get as much exposure for the film as possible, to people within the whole film and screen industry as well, and then after that, we'll try and get some sort of distribution deal so that it's then available to the general public, across other publicly available platforms. So ideally, we want to be able to try and get it onto some kind of VOD or video on demand or online screening platform, such as the big ones that everyone knows are like Netflix and Amazon and Stan, but there's lots of other platforms as well that are available. Some probably more lean towards short film and others lean towards feature film, and hopefully also be able to get other potential exposures such as airline screenings and that sort of thing. So these are all the steps that we're working towards slowly. We're sort of only at the beginning of the process. The film's only just been finished and we're just trying to get it out there now. It only just had its premiere in Mumbai a little over a month ago at the Mumbai International Film Festival. So that was a really good start. And now we've got these more festivals coming up. And fingers crossed, we'll try and get it into a few more and see how it goes.
That's good. That's good. Do you have any other project at the moment as far as the movies are concerned, or in near future?
Yeah, I am in negotiations at the moment to hopefully come on board as an executive producer for another feature film, and this time I want to do one on home soil in Australia. So I'm looking at a film that really showcases a lot of the multicultural diversity of Australia, which is one of the beautiful things about this country. I'm always, having grown up here and kind of lived that whole dichotomy of being a child of an immigrant family, I'm very drawn to stories about diaspora, about cross-cultural themes, and exploring those kind of stories because I've literally lived it all my life. And I think now it's quite clear Australia is a majority migrant country. Our stories are a very wide range of stories and very different to probably when I was growing up here. Things have changed a lot. So I definitely want to try and be involved in more of those kind of films where we can really show that ethnic diversity and just the beautiful tapestry of colours that modern Australian demographics are.
And you mentioned about the diversity. Yes, we have migrants from every country on the planet here. We have a very rich cultural First Nations heritage, but we do not see that diversity on the mainstream media and TV here. And is it going to change or not?
Yes, well, I think hopefully with time it's going to slowly change, and it has already changed a lot since I was growing up here as a child. What I've seen here growing up is very much a white Australia representation on the screen. So even now when I see an Asian face or a South Asian face, it's always like, oh, it takes you by, it's a pleasant surprise, but it shouldn't be a surprise. It should kind of be what we should be seeing as a norm. So I think now, I think everyone's become a lot more aware of this. I think there's a lot more initiatives now to try and increase diversity just, across the board, through government initiatives, and all of the big organizations are all getting behind trying to improve the diversity. So yes, there's definitely a lot more momentum to try and do that. So now is actually a really good time to try and get behind that momentum and get involved and be able to do that. So I think, I think hopefully it definitely is going to improve. And we've got a lot of, really good public figures out there who have big voices and are able to advocate, for our various cultures. And I think, as long as we have that and we can get behind them and support them, then, it will gradually change. I think the Australian film industry itself also struggles though in terms of just trying to compete with all the overseas content. So when you talk to a lot of the local Australian producers and filmmakers and TV executives, the big struggle they have and the big challenge is to try and get more Australian content across the board anyway on our screens. We've got so much content always coming from Hollywood and from the USA, and we get a lot of content from the UK as well. So it's hard, to be able to compete with that is hard. But so I think there's a few challenges to overcome.
Maybe
but
that gives,
but I think it is gradually changing.
yeah, maybe that gives an opportunity if you bring a different stories of the migrants and maybe First Nations. It might bring out a niche kind of Australian, the movies. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. But anyway.
Oh, well, I was even reluctant. I wasn't even sure putting Masa up for actors, whether it would even be accepted as a contender, being a foreign language film. But I was quite. It is my understanding is it is actually the first Indian language film in that short film category to be a contender for that award. But I was very pleasantly surprised amongst some, and there's some really interesting films that it's up against. There were a handful of other ones that were foreign language with English subtitles as well. So I'm pretty sure even 10 years ago that would never have been the case, and so I think it is gradually changing. Yeah.
Okay. Now, finally, you are a doctor by profession, and dance is your passion, and looks like that movie production is your alternative career. How do you manage? All of these are quite demanding also. How do you manage all these demanding profession and passions?
I think
and which part of you like the most as a doctor, as a dancer, or as a movie producer?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I don't think I could put my hat on any one thing. I think look, when you have a passion for something, you just make the time for it. So yes, I've got lots of balls in the air. I'm also a mother of three. My oldest one's right in the middle of doing his HSC year this year. So there's a lot of things going on. I think you just you make things work for yourself how you can. You use whatever support systems you have around you. I'm very lucky to have very, very supportive family. My husband, he's also a doctor as well, and he's also we support each other in our endeavors. He's also a producer on the film with me. We've kind of started Jhumka Films together, and I think it's nice to be able to share other sides of your personality, other facets of your interests and your passions with your family and your friends, and I think when they can see how strongly I feel about all these things and how much time and effort I put into it, they get behind me, and then they help to support us as well with all those things. And the other day I sat my 3 boys down and I showed them Masa, and it was like a really proud moment for me, because I just thought, how cool is it that I can show my kids, hey kids, look at this movie. This is a movie that's been produced by your mother. But not only that, this film has been produced by your mother and is set in the village where your great grandparents came from. And, I think that's a really unique privilege to be able to do something like that, and to, to have that kind of legacy for your children and your family as well. So I think, it comes from love. Like, these things are a labor of love, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. That's wonderful. I think you just mentioned about Port Macquarie. You were born, or an early part of your life you spent there. And did you see any similarities between Port Macquarie and Konkan region?
Well, both have beautiful beaches.
Yeah, I mean.
I think maybe the similarity might end there, though. They're very such a different culture. They grew up in very Aussie beach surf culture there, and we were the only Indian family in the town. So as a lot of kids of migrant families growing up, especially back then, where we were definitely the minority, you kind of live a bit of a double life. You go to school and try to blend in with the Australian kids, and then you go home, and then you have your Indian culture at home and traditions. But I was very lucky that I had that at home, and that my grandparents they used to come and visit us regularly from India, so they would spend a lot of time with us. And so in that time, I would speak with them, so I got the basics of the Marathi language and a lot of our cultural traditions. We used to always follow a lot of our customs, do our artis and pujas for all the various festivals. So I think I was very lucky, and I think that's what really is why I have such a deep-seated love of and appreciation of the culture, is because my family has really instilled that in me.
It's been wonderful talking to you, Pradnya, and thank you very much for your time, and our best wishes for the success of Masa movie in various awards. also for best wishes for your next projects also. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.